we are live.
Yes.
Hello, Eric. How are
Hi,
you?
Simon. Doing good.
Good to see you again.
Yeah. We had a first trial and error, but yeah, that happens, right?
And the great thing is that I can edit out that you just said we had a misstep, so even better.
True.
I could, but I won't. Why bother?
Yeah.
But I'm keen to look at your Projectum solution, your PPM solution. We've already had a bit of a chat about it, and hopefully get others to have a look. And but before we get started, could you just introduce yourself again, please? For everyone that doesn't know you, the three people.
So my name is Erik van Hurck. I live in the Netherlands. I'm a 7-year MVP for Project in all of its forms, basically, right? So Microsoft Project, Project Server, Project Online, Planner, Planner Premium, Project for the web. Did I leave anything out? Probably.
Well, they've all been called something different.
Yeah.
At least every time.
For me, it's a rose by any other name, right? So I'm a senior consultant for Projectum, working with customers around the world, either through our partners or through our own company directly. And yeah, it's my mission to help the PMO succeed with Microsoft Tech. And that's as broad as I could figure it out while still leaning into project management. But I'm also very interested in enterprise PMOs. And that's a stitch to your company as well. But yeah, it's an interesting bunch of people that try to make the world a better place. And I really like that mindset.
Yep. It's like being constantly on the pointy end, right? And you're not holding the stick. That's the great thing about it. All right. Before we get started, I'd just like to encourage everyone to jump into Erik's socials. His YouTube channel is fantastic. Follow him on LinkedIn. Is there anything else we should know that you've got going on? OnlyFans, maybe?
No, we don't have an OnlyFans, or at least I won't talk about it. And that's where the other three people are that don't know me. I have a blog. The blog is now constantly focused on generative AI. A little bit less frequented now because I recently moved, so everything is on a lower pitch than I would like it to be. But
we will put links below for all your stuff. So why don't we crack into it? The subject of this video call, podcast, whatever it is to look at how Projectum approaches PPM management. And I know you've got a tool that you promote. In particular, we're going to look at that tool, Power PPM. We're going to look at the project planning and scheduling that it does. We're going to try and follow this list of items that are fairly common to most project management software. And hopefully we can do it without spending all day with me yabbering. So having said that, mate, how about you kick off and talk about PPM and the technology behind it? Probably the first time.
Sure. So let me make sure that I have the same screen on that you have. You should see my mouse hovering over these different tiles.
We have a bunch of our stuff.
Ours. It's all ours. So the technology behind this is mostly based on the Power Platform. So what you're looking at right now is a model-driven Power App. And what Microsoft has done is they created this powerhouse of a project and portfolio management system called PPM. our EPM if you're newer, or it's called Project Server and Project Online. That has been our bread and butter for so long, and all of a sudden Microsoft decides to go full cloud native. And while they're doing that, they created a new system or a new solution called Project for the Web. And Project for the Web is a fully new build solution, but it leaves a lot in the wayside. Now, that's a vendor opportunity, of course. And we at Projectum thought, okay, let's take a look at that scheduling engine. That's called the Project for the Web. And let's build the rest around it using the Power Platform. That evolved into Power PPM, which is a solution that runs at multiple hundred companies right now across the world. We do sell this throughout our partner network or directly in Northern Europe. And this is our solution to what Microsoft used to service with Project Server and Project Online, because you might be familiar with this as well. Microsoft isn't investing anymore in those two solutions. So it is what it is, and it does what it does very well, but it's not evolving into the new way of working. It doesn't have a co-pilot solution in here. And
we should just mention, Eric, that they've threatened to close down Project Online once already.
Yeah.
Yeah. They put a deadline in the sand, and it was only because clients couldn't or wouldn't shift that they've now moved. What's the new license model?
It's a public plan license structure, right?
Yeah. So it's P3 gets it for you, but yeah. So there's a lot of people I know that are on that platform, and they are between a rock and a hard space. And that's exactly where Microsoft have put them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the idea that Planner is going to satisfy the needs of a proper PMO at the moment just isn't realistic.
No, and I think that the terminology speaks for itself. Microsoft calls Planner a work management solution, and I've heard task management solutions being called when it comes to Project for the Web. So Microsoft has another solution, a third solution called Project Operations, and they do a very good job at creating a solution for quote to cash organizations, consultancy firms like ourselves. That has everything that Project Server was, but fully in the cloud. But for all the other types of organizations, building, construction, healthcare, energy companies, insurance companies, to name just a few, they're left with either the ancient technology called Project Server and Project Online, or adopt something very...
That actually cuts me pretty deep, Eric.
You're that guy from the ancient technologies, aliens, Project Server.
I may have to wind up the first server I ever built to get it to run, but anyway, look, I appreciate that, because one of the big things about Project Server was just how configurable it was, and a lot of people would actually have a config for a industry or a sector, and like some maybe you had to worry about contracting, maybe you didn't, as in managing contracts. So a loss of that configuration is part of the big bugbear that I think everyone's facing, right? So
it's a lovely tool, and every time I get back to Project Online, it's getting back to an old lover, right?
Well,
it is such a tool.
I will say as the old guy, I think the Project Server still has it on simply because of the data you can extract from SQL directly.
Yeah, yeah, because
OData is not
Yeah.
the best solution you could imagine.
No, exactly. There was a lot of uproar when people found out that Project Online wasn't as accessible as Project Server was.
Well, people's reports wouldn't work,
Yeah.
and they relied on them. So, well
Yeah,
done,
exactly.
Microsoft. There's a tip.
And all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, mate. So, how about we crack into the solution? Let's have a look at your scheduling solution, your planning and scheduling.
Yeah. So Power PPM has a number of entry points. You can look at initiatives, which is basically projects and agile initiatives combined, portfolios, ideas, programs, risks, strategy. Let's start with our projects. Now, I've opened up.
So you've got an inbuilt life cycle from the sounds of it. People can plug in ideas. The ideas can transform into a rough order of magnitude project. Yeah.
Exactly.
So do you want to take us through the inception of a project, and we'll have a look
Sure.
from there?
Let's do that. Let's open up the ideas. I don't have any ideas, so I will just create.
Join the club, mate.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I've got an idea. It's Friday afternoon and the pub's open. That's the only idea.
What are we doing here? So from this page, which is a flexible page, mind you, and we do have specific templates for specific industries. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to have a whole energy company round table at Projectum in Copenhagen, which is going to be interesting. And we're going to talk about the template for that industry. But what we have here is an idea. And
so does that marry as closely as can, I guess, to the idea of the project type?
Yeah, so the enterprise project types that you have in Project Server and Project Online, that merits in here. What we do have on top of what Project Server has is Project Server is a project-focused application. It doesn't have the concept of a program or a portfolio or an idea. You need to build that yourself. So in Power PPM, we have the full life cycle. We have it starts with its inception, and we do have companies that have a section before this page here where they have a SharePoint list, and that SharePoint list is listened into by either Logic Apps or Power Automate Flows.
Yeah.
As soon as a new idea is created in that SharePoint list, it populates back here in our new idea section.
And to be fair to Microsoft, they did do something very similar with SharePoint, where you could promote SharePoint list information to create a new project.
Yeah.
It sucked.
Yep. So we're seeing 2 AI things here. So let's get back to that as well. It's part of a company portfolio, and this is optional. The owner, of course, is a mandatory thing that you need to have here. Proposed start. Let's start on a Monday, not on a Friday. And let's say this ends in February. Demo time. And it's a new idea on the roadmap. We can have a budget estimation, and we have a return on investment, and it's a transformational type of project.
I'm making the assumption that all these drop downs are lookups somewhere that can be configured and configured differently for the project type.
Exactly. So what the backend is called Dataverse, and Dataverse is a tabular data storage, fully configurable for every organization that we tailor to. So for some of the organizations, we would have 3 business process steps for an idea. Others would just have 1 or maybe 17. Or so what we typically do is we have a first demonstration of what Power PPM does natively, and that is the demonstration that we're doing here right now. But then we tailor that to the needs of the organization itself.
So that's what you do your workshops. You'd understand the business. You then populate the project types and the custom fields appropriately, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's good, and that's done in the Dataverse, which is really the new area for admins to go in and mess things up.
Yeah, yeah, mess things.
I'm rubbing my hands together just thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's my playground right now with all of our customers. So we have a number of customers in the energy sector, for instance, and they typically are interested in megawatts. So that is a field that's not native to Power PPM, but we include it into that solution so that we have ideas that, for instance, if we want to have that location, what are we going to build on it? Is it going to be a solar farm, or is it going to be a wind farm, or are we going to build a hydrogen plant there? Anything goes as long as it tailors to the megawatt need of the organization.
Yeah. So they're looking for the ROI of megawatts.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where it all lands at the organization. So what are we doing is an idea right now, and it can have a strategic fit, and it can have a justification, as well as, we had a budget of $1 million. Let's say we have a larger amount of benefit. And if I click save now, I can have the justification say that there's an ROI of 1.5. Quite good, quite decent. So if I move to the next stage, more information comes available, and I can say, okay, well, this is an idea score, which is excellent. If I click on save, or if I click on save and close, it navigates me back to all my ideas. Of course, this is a view, so that we can also have a look at active ideas, or active ideas in a Kanban board. Or
sorry, that's a calculated field that determines your rating, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, customizable in the back end.
Exactly. So if you can see here, we have just strategic fit, but if you want to amend that with cost, risks, time, quality, anything in that line of thought, you can just add an additional field that will help you calculate that idea score.
Yeah, like you might do what are the benefits that and then you rate against each of those benefits that the organization wants, and then you end up with your
yeah, exactly. We have a large trailer company that had, what was it, 15 fields that they want to score an idea on, because there's so much hanging on a single project that they want to have that chance of success as high as possible before they start actually doing the work. So that's perfecting the measure twice, cut once philosophy, I would say. Yeah. So let's create an initiative, and this is done by something that's called a business rule in the back end. So that business rule takes into account this field being yes, and then it links an initiative to it. All the information is then available from that idea into a project, which is now in the pipeline phase. And what do we see? We see that there's demo description. There is a roadmap tag. There, it's active, is in operations, and more information will come available.
Now, I notice your AI assistance keeps popping up.
Lovely, right?
And I assume that's Copilot. So you're Copilot.
Yeah. There's Copilot and AI Builder inside this solution. So let's put money where the mouth is and see what happens if I click on lessons learned. This is one of the newer lessons learned AIs that I haven't clicked on yet. So let's see.
I'll edit it. If it goes longer than 5 minutes, I'll edit it out. Don't worry.
So let's have this running, and let's navigate to another project that I have open here. Here is a other type of project, which is called an IT project, where the pipeline project was of type pipeline, which has something else here. If I have this project open now, I can create a new status report based on what I have active in my schedule. So I have nothing in my schedule because I created a project, not a schedule. So if we go to, for instance, our timeline, what you'll see is our solution that is comparable with Project for the Web.
Right.
Here you have templates.
A little bit limited.
Well, it does more than Project for the Web.
Can I ask? Can I drill into assignment level?
Yes.
So I can put people against multiple people against tasks, and
Yes.
and have them work different hours and different times.
Exactly.
Well
You
done,
can do that now with Project for the Web, though. But yeah.
Oh, you don't have a view for it. That's the problem.
Yes and no.
Maybe they've added it recently.
Yeah.
My,
and that's the thing. It's an iterative process for Microsoft, as if they're learning the whole thing anew, right? And that's scary in the sense that they had the perfect scheduling engine, that's Microsoft Project. And then all of a sudden they say, well, we don't know if we need baselines. And they hadn't known if they needed baselines because it wasn't in their telemetry. So the telemetry said that only 5% of all organizations use baselines. Well, maybe that's the 5 that actually do some work. But... So talking about that resources, because that's an interesting topic, of course. Here I can add myself, and I can add, we have a couple of Christians, and I can add 40 hours for Christian and 80 hours for myself. And I can even look at actual works and remaining work and all that stuff.
So we're looking at Active Directory resources. I don't want to skip ahead because we're still in the planning and scheduling. But can you invite outside individuals to participate?
Yeah, well, that has been a request for quite some time. Let me just add 20 days here because that makes more sense. Yes, it looked at Active Directory or system users previously. But what we've done is we created a known table for resources because there was a need for generic resources, material resources, outside resources. So
well, let's leave that for later, Eric, and we'll just get back to the planning bit, mate. Sorry, I want to timestamp the recording for YouTube. So I have.
So from here, this is the view called Project Center from our Project Server and Project Online days, right? So here we see all the projects that are running. How far along are they? When does it start? When does it finish? Is there an issue with the finish date? Are there KPIs that we are looking into? And here I can easily find my Eriks demo, Eriks project. Here I am. And from the timeline, there's a number of things that we can do, which currently is not in place in Project for the Web, or is there, but in a lesser extent. So one of the things is that we have the option to add custom fields that are enterprise custom fields, so that it is something that is broader than just a single project.
Again, by project type?
By project type, yeah, sure.
Right.
Then we have a print option, then we have baselines, and mind you, this is plural. So where Project for the Web currently has the ability to create 1 baseline, we have the ability to create 5. And we are investigating if we want to extend this to infinite. There are 2 broad schools of people working with baselines. One typically thinks that a baseline is something that is something you enter only when there's a large scope change, I'm of that school. And there's other schools that say every time I move into a certain phase, I want to have a new baseline.
Yeah, but I'm with you. There's no need to change your baseline if there's no change to forecast.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
My approach would be if there's a project change request that changes something from orange to green, for instance, sure, rebaseline so it's green.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'll also note that Primavera lets people have as many baselines as they want, and whether that's wise or not, I've always been frustrated by the limit of 10 in Microsoft Project.
Well,
because I know a lot of projects do more than 10 change requests, and I always use number 1 for the first budget estimate.
Yeah.
So that we can look back at the ROM and see where we're so wrong.
Yeah.
So I would agree that more than 5. I'd also ask if they can be protected. So the PMs can't just do them.
Yeah. And that ties into your work as a PMO, where you want the first 5 to be protected by the PMO, so that there's official baseline structures.
If it was up to me, I would make them all protected. I have a low trust level for PMs.
What is that? Experience or? So we're constantly improving this, and we have a 3-month cadence in which we tailor our products. One of the things, one of our products is the Power PPM solution, which has the Gantt component. And the Gantt component is one of our components that we increase functionality based on either customer requests, partner requests, or our own thought process. Protecting baselines is something that I haven't heard as a direct ask, but I'll move it forward into our development. It does make sense.
You do have to configure it in security for project service, so you know.
Yeah, and that's something that we can easily configure here as well. So this is our scheduling engine, and you might say this is not Project for the Web, and you are fully right in that sense. Now, the question comes up now and again that an organization already has Project for the Web and has that tailored to the extent that it can be tailored, and the PMO wants to stick with it. The main reason for that is because that Project for the Web is tied into Microsoft Teams very, very neat. So a project team already has a Microsoft Teams environment where they can share their documentation in. So for whatever reason, a organization wants to stick with their Project for the Web solution, they can switch that for on this page. So if you want to stick with your Project for the Web, you can use that as the scheduling engine within Power PPM. It's not an either or scenario.
Sorry, mate. So with Planner, I notice also that you actually create your own group when you create the plan.
Yeah.
And it automatically adds the AD user to that group.
Yeah.
Which I see big problems, but regardless. So have you considered that in your development forward?
Yeah. So when a organization wants to adopt their Project for the Web scenario, we do make them aware of certain organizational results in that. So adding people to the AD in there, or adding people to a Office 365 group is some things that some organizations aren't familiar with, or the fact that yeah, and some of them even have Planner or Project for the Web in the default environment. Well, that's something that we frown upon, because the default environment is accessible and a Wild West for everyone, right? Because every person in the default has the ability to delete other person's projects.
Yeah.
We were talking about security on baselines. You don't have any security with Project for the Web.
Teams is almost as bad.
Yeah, Teams is also Wild West at sometimes. Yeah, for sure. I saw something about financial management in the list of actions that you wanted to talk about. Should we?
Yeah, I like this. You've got your gates at the top, I assume, there. So you pipeline the planning to execute. I assume that's all changeable by project type.
Absolutely.
You've got a more complex type project. You want to make sure there's more gates and more often.
Yeah. So let me show you that, because here we have different types of projects.
Yeah.
And the pipeline we've already seen here, which is still learning a lot. Then we have the minor work, which is, and we have an agile initiative projects, or a project, the one that we have now. If I click on agile initiative, what it does, it grabs the information that it still can use, and it changes everything, except, of course, the thing that we were talking about. But it does change the section down below, right? As an agile initiative, we don't talk about tasks. We don't talk about baselines. We talk about work packages and items. There was a mention about integrations. I think it was the last thing on our list. Here you can add a initiative from either DevOps or Jira or roughly any other agile tool that you're working with. And the reason why I'm saying that so confident is because we're building this on top of the Power Platform. And Microsoft has a very big engagement in making that as accessible from other applications as possible. So we have the ability to sync this. Yeah.
So you've hit on something that I often have to deal with, okay? And tell me if this is doable with this. So let's say there's a ServiceNow, which a lot of BAU activity gets recorded, break fix sort of things, tickets. So I've always had a problem with that when I'm calculating capacity for the organization, because I can see everything that's in project land, but not so much in BAU land.
Yeah.
So are we saying here that if we set up one of these as a bucket of task items, we can see, let's say there's a database admin, we can see how many tickets he's got, hence the capacity that impact that has for him to do projects?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And here comes an interesting side effect of Power PPM, is that it tends to become an umbrella for the different types of scheduling that the organization does, right? I don't believe that there's a lot of organizations that are waterfall only or that are agile only. So what we do with Power PPM is we give you the ability to capture all of work. And we even got it in a name that we need to change in the name of the product. We call this XPM. So it doesn't matter what type of work you have. We want to capture it all and be able to report on it all. Because you might have different ways of utilizing me, but you only have one me, right? So if I work...
And there's only 24 hours that you can be whipped.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, whipped. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
You can only crunch 24 hours. There's no more.
Yeah, exactly. And we tend to see different types of projects and agile initiatives, right? So that's also why we steered away from the term. Let me just close this and navigate back to our homepage, because on the homepage you might have seen that it shows you our initiatives instead of our projects, because we also want to tailor the agile world. But one big difference here is we do not want to replace the agile applications. We want to make it available to us, because Azure DevOps, Jira, ServiceNow do their thing really good, and we love them for it. But they don't have a very good, or at least I haven't seen a very good project and portfolio management solution, or portfolio and program management solution for that. And that's where our solution ties that knot and becomes that umbrella organization structure.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that, mate. There's many times that I've had where I've had to have schedules that show effort, because we need to capture how much effort's going on.
Yeah.
And when I approach the agile guys, the immediate response is they try and drown me in a bathtub somewhere. Then then we agree we're going to have a schedule for them that will have people attached to sprints and deliverable dates on a baseline. And at that point, I can get a RAG status, and I can get the amount of effort. So I assume you're doing something very similar when you pull in that information from other systems, right?
Exactly. And we do need to adhere to the team structure of Agile world, right? Agile doesn't track an individual user, they track a team, or at least they should, in my opinion. So what I'm showing you here is our solution for resource management, which is called Team Planner. And it is integrated within the Power PPM solution, and it can be accessed as a separate application.
Okay, before we go down the resources, can we please just pop back, and what I want to see now, or what I'd love to see, is how that programs of work can sit together.
Yeah, sure.
And if you've got something that can show us benefit, so two things really: benefit realization out of programs, and inter-project dependencies.
All right. So let's add my Eriks project to a portfolio and a program, and let's go from there. So digitalization sounds like a good program.
There's many fingers in that pie.
Yeah, exactly. And then portfolio. So let's click on save, and let's go and see what happens if I click on the program. So what you'll see is that there's a quick way to go from one location into the solution to the next, right? From a project, I went to a program, and from a program, I can easily go to a portfolio. So this has a program owner and a sponsor, and this is a description. It can adhere to OKRs if you want to. One thing to note here is the big difference from Project Server, Project Online compared to this solution is that it has a separate concept for a program. Where our Project Server and Project Online days, we needed to add a custom field that said, this is a program, and then use
or a project type.
Or a project type, exactly. Yeah. And add that projects to it as a master child projects structure. So let's take a look at the timeline from a program's perspective. Now we've seen the timeline on a project, and I created a project here, and you can see that here. Did you notice that there wasn't a save and publish action that I needed to do? Something I always like. What you'll see is that my project is here, and because I've set it up so that as a program manager, I am able and allowed to make changes to it, which in a real life scenario, I would highly recommend not doing. Having multiple owners of things. But in the sense, for a demo purpose, I now have a ability to add dependencies between the program level, which is this one, program milestones, and my individual project. Now, the question pops up most of the time, what does this mean? Is this a hard booking, or is this a soft booking, or is this a hard dependency or a soft dependency? Well, that is configuration. Some organizations want to have this as a hard dependency, which basically means that if I move that program milestone, everything moves.
Yeah.
And there's organizations that say, no, I just want a warning message. Tell my project manager that his project isn't going to happen this year.
And let him sort it out.
And let him sort it out, because there's different types of ownership, right? Different levels of ownership. And
have you got all the
king of the country? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have all the different dependency types in there?
We do. So start to start, finish to finish, start to finish, finish to start. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
we
it's
also
a dependency.
Yeah.
It's a normal dependency. Just at this particular view, you can go from project to project.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. So this overview is available, and you see that there's multiple projects inside that schedule. And we also have, and I would need to find that, a list of our initiatives with Erik's project in there as well. We have program level risks, of course, and bad water. Let me see if I can show you
risks that are raised in the project but marked as program level risks.
Yeah. So what I typically do at customers of mine is I add escalation options. What you'll see, this is the modern grid that we now use. Let's create some AI risks related to construction projects in a swamp. I just think about this right now. So what this does, it goes out, starts a Power Automate flow. That Power Automate flow looks at the request that I did, and it creates 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, it creates multiple. So I need to tailor that prompt. But what you'll see is that project delay, soil instability, yes, logistical challenges, equipment damage, flooding. There's something about mosquitoes here as well, probably health hazards. So what I typically do for our project risks is that I have the ability to raise this to a portfolio or a program. So if I raise this to our digital, it of course doesn't find it, live demos. So let's see if I can pull this up.
I'll squint hard. I'm sure it'll say it.
Exactly. So company portfolio. And if I save this now, project delays, and I go to the company portfolio, I'm now on a portfolio level. So on the top level, I have different tabs available. One of them is the risk. And here you see that project delay instantly appear on top. And if I click on it, I can see more information of it. And I can even change it inside this side pane and save and close. I also have a Kanban board for all our agile people. So here you'll see different projects of different types. And I can move these around. I can say, okay, laboratory instrument, let's move that to a mandatory thing. And let's increase the priority because it's a very important thing. So I want to have this as being the most important thing that we do. And this tailors into that single project immediately. So here it says transformational. If I click on it, it will say transformational somewhere here. Of course, not where I want it to. Transformational, but I move it to be determined, and I open that project again. What I'll see is that it is updated. So there's a live feed back and forth between that project because you are changing that project directly. And there's, of course, a roadmap.
And you can set up multiple groups in that, I assume. But yes.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. This one, this campaign is currently tailored to the business
oh,
drive, but we can also see that on status. So is it active, on hold, canceled, closed, or
okay.
what type of work are we doing? Pipelines, minor work, or projects, or even IT projects. Yeah. So there's full flexibility here, and organizations can tailor this to the type of project, the type of work, the type of KPIs that they're working with. Looking at the time, how are we doing? I do have one lovely thing.
We're 45 minutes in.
All right.
I think we've covered a bunch of stuff out of sequence, but that's fine.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in looking now is the old project server. Although I have mixed feelings about SharePoint, had a really nice collaboration website that you could easily configure. It had its own benefits in itself. So have we got something similar going on here?
We do. We do also still like SharePoint for all its merits. We have a document set here, and what this does, it gives me an error message because I don't have access. It refuses to connect. Lovely.
I saw the word SharePoint in there.
There's SharePoint at the back. Yeah. Let me see. Why don't I have access? Is there a different project I can look at? For instance, the accelerated growth. If I look at documents, that's too bad. Yes, there's SharePoint in the back end here that tailors to your project that you have access to.
Okay, so but it's a SharePoint with permissions geared to the project.
Yeah, exactly. It takes into account who is part of this project. Remember that I had a couple of team members in here, which now also don't show up.
So I'm probably thinking more around the licensing, whether you can get team members to do the collaboration in SharePoint site rather than going into the old system itself.
We have a time sheeting application for that, Time for Teams, which takes into account the timeline values.
Okay.
What we had in Project Server is we had risks and issues being part of that SharePoint page. We currently have that inside here, right? So people will go to this location.
Okay. So let's have a look at the people side of the world. Because I think Project Server did well. It brought people and tasks together.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole aim of the game, really.
Yeah. So from a resource perspective, and you said this in previous talks as well, it's interesting to see that you have a resource that works for multiple projects. And you don't have multiple people, multiple Eriks working for a project. And as soon as I spin up another project, I'll have another Erik. No, you have one person, 24 hours to whip, and you want to have a full-fledged solution for that. What we see typically is that there's a conflict of ownership, right? We have a project manager that owns the project, but then we have a line manager or a resource manager that owns the time of that resource. So what we've done is we created a solution that has both a request and an allocation side to it. A project manager can request a resource, and a line manager allocates that resource.
So how closely to the Project Server solution are we talking? Have you got groups, teams? Have you got generic resources that represent teams?
Yes.
Yeah. And how configurable are those teams? Do you have, so obviously the team might be database admins. Use those guys. Do you then break it down further into a skill level set, or is that customizable?
It's fully customizable. Yeah. And go ahead.
I was going to say, just take me through it. Let's have a look at Erik, the person. as a resource in the system?
Yeah. So from Erik's project, I'm looking at this through the eyes of a project manager. Looking at my project here, I have the ability to tackle resources, but these are generic resources, right? So the generic resource consultant and a generic resource BI consultant. So these two consultants need to do some work for me on a project.
So as a PM, you can't just go in and grab someone by name.
Well, there's enough feedback from that so that we added this little button here, request named resources. Because yes, not every organization has a dedicated line manager role that wants to be in the system. So we do have the ability to find Erik.
Plus, there'll be resources that are dedicated 100% to one project anyway. So
yeah.
It's ask for a generic when you know who you're going to get because you hired them.
Yeah, exactly. So what we do is we request resources, and we request them on a monthly level or a weekly level or quarterly or yearly level. This all ties into the forecasting capability. So if this is a new project that you're going to start up next year and it's a multi-year project, then you want to be on a yearly or quarterly basis when you're requesting resources.
Yeah.
But when
you
you're
want to figure out year costs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the current quarter and I'm saying, well, okay, we need Erik for 160 hours a month, and then I'll drag that over to the other 2 months. I can add a note. Requested and named. And this will show up at the line manager's desk, who's going to allocate me. What you'll see here is that it's red. And the reason why it's red is because I requested someone, but I didn't get someone allocated.
Yeah.
So from an allocations perspective, I could either see that through a project, but because a line manager might want to see all of the projects and all of the work. Here you see those 3 projects that we had. So let's have a look at Erik again. We'll look at allocations. And here you'll see Erik. And Erik is doing a network upgrade. And I'm doing that as a Scrum Master and as something. I can do it.
I've been a good before. It's not great.
Yeah. So here's the allocation and the request. So I'm requesting Erik, and as a line manager, I go in and I can say, well, Erik is available. Let's go in and let's match the request. And I match the request for the time that I'm seeing. And if I click on OK, now it's matched to my fullest extent, because I'm not available for the full 100% because I was doing something as a Scrum Master, remember? So I do need to have another consultant working together with me. So I can have Anjali, and I can, Anjali is also free capacity. She's
over-allocated. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. So this gives us a full-fledged ability to look at resource allocations and resource alignment.
This is exactly what I've been doing reports because it wasn't in the system, mate. So it's like pulling out that data to say, hey, how many of these people are available? So can I see it from the resource manager's point of view? And as well, if you've got it, what the report does as well, it shows from an organizational level by those teams over time when bottlenecks are going to occur for the teams.
Yeah. So one of the views that I really like is this one. where you have a heat map where you can see all the resources that are inside your organization or your level of the organization, because you might not be able to see everything. And here you'll see that there's resources that are available a lot. And then there's resources that are allocated quite nicely. And then there is over allocation.
Until Christmas time, mate, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. This year was a good year.
So can I just ask about the security that you sort of mentioned there? Are you using the org structure to determine who can see what people?
Yeah, right? And remember that we had this admin section here.
Yeah.
We have resources here, and we have an RBS.
Great.
So in the RBS structure, and let me see if I can open that up nicely. Where was it again? There's this beautiful view that I always miss. But here you can see, okay, well, what level are you on, and who owns that? And
looks very familiar. I'm not sure where from, but so you can place permissions based on an org structure to say, you're the line manager, you can see these guys.
Exactly.
You're the line manager's manager, you can see all your line managers guys. Great.
Yeah. And this team planner application evolved from our days in Project Server and Project Online, where we called it Resource Manager, because this is a gap that Microsoft hasn't filled in Project Server days either. So we have Project Server, Project Online, now Power PPM tie into that team planner need, where there's a different owner that owns the resource, and we want to have full functionality, full visibility of that.
We could do it, but it was unwieldy, and it was always easier just do it as a report for the line manager. So even if the PM put a real person in, at least they could look at the report and say, sneaky buggy, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And go have a gentle word.
Here it says resource heat map, but it's not a heat map. Lovely. No. Why is it not a heat map? Because I didn't press on the heat map.
There we go.
So here we have it. So it also ties into that schedule. So this is a portfolio level looking at all the resources that we have available. So here you see that the consultant pool is not so utilized this year or last year, but ties in this year.
Has a big bottleneck right there.
Yeah, exactly. The consultants always nasty people. But yeah, so
they deserve it. Let's be honest.
Yep. Would you be interested in talking a little bit about our Lord and Savior Power BI?
I would. I think we're probably at that point. Let's.
All right. So the title says Power Hub Reports, and what we've done is we've created a sort of a time machine. So if you're familiar with Doctor Who, this is our blue phone box. What it gives us is a ability to look back at every moment in time in the past and see how we are doing data quality wise, portfolio health wise, and so on. It takes every change that happens on the system and creates a snapshot of that change and reports that back into an Azure SQL. So we have a temporal database set that gives us the ability to look at portfolio health.
I was techie in me is saying, how are you snapshotting that? But you're saying it's on change. So
on every change. Yeah.
Okay. So every change you are filling in a line in a database.
Yeah. So let's say we look at our project and we change that from type.
Yeah.
And it changes the live feed, so the current feed, it changes that, and it adds an additional line in a temporal data set. And then it says it's valid from and valid until, and the current data set is valid until infinity. And then it it changes based on a new change. So if I change it now, it will say valid until timestamp, and it creates a new line.
Okay, so it's in terms of auditing, how far back can you set it? Can you set it so that everything's audited forever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a SQL data set, so it goes back to wherever you have capacity for, and because it's on Azure, it's scalable. What we do see is that Dataverse has an audit trail, which is not easily readable, and it increases the organizational data set, the Dataverse capacity, because it becomes expensive quite fast. So what we've done is we take that out, and we give you the ability to move into a Power Hub scenario.
Okay, so just quickly, without showing me, how configurable is that? Can you say what actions are recorded? Like, I want to see when things are.
Yeah, there's a Power Hub hub, and it shows you all the tables in this SQL Server, and it shows you all the columns in the SQL Server, and it has toggles. Do you want to have historical data? Yes, no. Do you want to have this in a reporting view? Yes, no. And it goes forward in that sense. Good.
So I've had to use third-party tools that trigger on the queue change for that sort of thing. So can you configure this for SharePoint as well?
Yes, we can add SharePoint as a data source. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do have the ability to add multiple data sources to our Power Hub. We have a native integration with Dataverse, so Power PPM. We also have integrations with our Azure backend applications, such as Timesheet.
Okay. The only reason I ask is quite often there's a list that is set up for a project site, and every project site has it. I mean, like risks and issues in the old days, right? They're all on the project site, and you'd want to see when they're changed. I'm trying to think. I don't want to mention a client's name, but there's been instances where they want a particular record set as a SharePoint list on the project site, so security applies, and then always reporting out of that has always been a real pain.
Yeah, I did a lovely report on a lovely blog post about something like that a while back. Still some of the more visited articles. Yeah.
You know what's more fun is when you go into a client that's already got it set up, and they're reading the SharePoint database, and you tell them that, hey, you're not actually allowed to do that.
Yeah. How are you doing this? Why?
Oh, you can query I'm talking about server. You can query the SharePoint database, but it's just one big block of referential. So it's very, like, the query you have to do is ridiculous. I don't know if you've ever had to do it, because you're probably not old enough.
So from a project standpoint, we have this project called accelerated growth. Now, of course, I can't spell accelerated growth. It's not here. From a project perspective, I can look at different projects, and I can see risks, KPI status, milestones, things like that. And of course,
so that's embedded in your app.
Yeah,
I'll make the assumption, because I'm looking at the tabs at the bottom. I know you're back. I'm looking at the tabs at the back. You can set that up in a normal Power BI for other, like, executive portal.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a embedded Power BI report. But what we typically also do is create a Power BI app, which has financials hidden for everyone that doesn't need to see financials, and then it populates that correctly.
Yeah, customize it for the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All the execs love their own portal, mate.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's a brief overview of what Power PPM can do. And I do think that we have an article on XPM, so everything project management solution. I'll put a link in the comments for that, because I think where the organization should be going in the future. It's not only a schedule, not only a portfolio. It's also agile. It's also scaled agile, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes, and we're just past the 1 hour mark. And I do thank you for your time. It's been excellent. I think we've just scratched the surface. To be honest, it looks great. Well done, you and the team over at Projectum. I think you've filled the gap and more that Microsoft have left there. I suggest everyone that watches this, reach out, contact Erik.
Absolutely.
And he will take you even deeper and even into the murky depths of stuff
in the rabbit hole. Yeah. Exactly.
I've seen a lot that's very, very familiar, mate. And that's good to see. It really is. But I think you've actually taken a little step, well, not a little, a significant step further especially in stuff that we've had to do in reports in the past. And around resource capacity management, everything like that. That's brilliant. That's
Projectum has been around for 20 years. We just had our 20-year anniversary in Riga in the east of Europe, and it shows we've been around. We've heard your pleas of help, resource report that I can actually rely on, for instance. So we're building on top of our own knowledge on project and portfolio management, and we're moving with the organizations instead of pushing, I would say.
Yeah, I think what I hear from you is that you listen. There's a lot of listening inside the different sectors, and what's even better is, rather than trying to hard code bespoke solutions for every single customer, you're making a platform that's flexible enough to be configured for the scenarios that presented with.
I couldn't say that. Yeah, absolutely.
And as we've spoken about before, I'm a guy that has put JavaScript into SharePoint, and I didn't like doing it, but I had to. So
yeah, it's
if you're the person out there that had to deal with that, I'm very sorry.
No comments, but yeah.
I'll buy you a beer. It'll be bygones will be bygones. Will be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Erik. I'll put all your links and stuff down in the comments, and hopefully we get back soon, because I actually want to dig a bit deeper, I think, mate.
All right. Sounds lovely. Let's talk. And
thanks, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Bye.